Good day, all you podcasters out there in Podcastville. I'm Rex Johnson, and this is our podcast for this month. It's been a while since we've done this because been traveling, and then got a little sick, about 15 to 20 days, and was laid out a little bit with double pneumonia, but I'm so happy to be back. Had a little fog in my brain for a while, but I think I'm steady today. But I've got somebody today I want to introduce to you that just absolutely blows my mind with what he has done in his life in his short 43 years on this earth. And you're going to love this person I'm going to introduce today. He was born and raised in Mount Pleasant, Texas. He was a child of two pastoring parents. They pastored a church, and so he's a PK. And it's so cool to have a PK sitting opposite of me here. He went to school there, played ball there, graduated in 97, came to the University of Texas, graduated here in 2001. But he was student government president while he was here, so he was very loved, very liked, and a great leader. He learned leadership skills very early in his life. Then he went to Harvard to law school and graduated there with a degree from John Kennedy School in 2004. He's a husband to a wife named Hillary. They have 5 wonderful children. We're going to talk about those kids after a while. Their ages are 12, 10, 8, 6, and 5, and they are dandies. I love seeing them every time they walk in the church. It's like, here come the Roberts. Here they come, and we're so excited. He's a University of Texas professor currently, and we'll talk about how he got into this situation a little bit later. It's a part of his story, and I want him to tell that. But what he does, he teaches athletes how to take care of themselves outside the world of football when they get into the professional world. And several years ago, he wrote a book called Call an Audible. And what it was a story about how to pivot in life. He went from being a law-degreed person to a football coach in the professional ranks. And he said, I wanted my pivot to show people that they could pivot in life and become anything that they desired to be. We'll talk about that. I will tell you that Daron K. Roberts has been walking in favor for a long time. Favor's been on him. He really has. And God's inclined himself to this young man. And so today, without any further ado, I want to present to you my guest today. His name is Daron Roberts, but he has a middle initial K, so he's DKR. So it's like Daryl K. Royal, he's a DKR. And so he's got all kinds of favor on him. Daron, I want to introduce you to the podcast crowd of the Rex Johnson podcast. We're delighted to have you. Thank you for being here today. Let's talk, because you are a conversationalist and you're a great, great motivational speaker. And I want to hear what you have to say today. Give us a little intro of what we're going to talk about today.
Listen, first, just thank you. When we got back to, my wife and I were in Cleveland, and, we played a season, and we go up to the Steelers. We lose in the last 3 seconds on a field goal to Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We get back on the plane, and I get a text that says 8 a.m. staff meeting with the owner. So we wake up the next morning, 8 a.m., 14 coaches pile into a room, and the owner of Jimmy Haslam, Cleveland Browns, walks in, sits down. He says, guys, I appreciate all of your contributions. You're all fired. I wish you and your families well. So Pastor, this meeting started at 8, ended at 8:01.
Oh, dear me.
And I went home, and I go home, and I start scrambling eggs, and my oldest son, Dylan, was 3 at the time, and Dylan walks in, and he sees me scrambling eggs, and he asks me a question. He says, do you eat breakfast? And so I did what any good father would do. I just ignored the kid. I kept scrambling. I just been fired. I'm trying to think of the next city we're going to. But he comes back and he says, you eat breakfast? So I turned to my wife, Hillary, and she grew up on a ranch in Leavenworth, Kansas, never won the pull punches. All right. And she says, well, when was the last time you had breakfast with Dylan? And Pastor, that was one of those moments where everything stood still, and I had to come to grips with the fact that I was spending all of my time with other people's sons.
There you go.
My own son didn't know me.
There you go.
So we packed up everything in the U-Haul, came to Austin, Texas, and we were fortunate to find the Christian Life family. So Just first, I want to say thank you for the man you are and the man you continue to be. And I've seen even over this period, this 8-year stretch, just how you continue to evolve in the Word, and so we're honored to be a part of it.
Thank you for being here.
You know, something that's been on my mind quite a bit has been seasons.
Okay.
And seasons of life. And as I was listening to you kind of narrate my biography, it just struck me that I'm 43 today. If you'd asked me at 33 what my goal in life was, I would have said NFL head coach. If you would have asked me at 23, I would have said governor of Texas. And it just it strikes me that oftentimes we have these big goals on the board without consulting the Lord. And we make all these moves, and we move in a way without really listening and asking for direction. So I'm in a period of my life where I'm just going through seasons, and so it's good to be here with you.
You know what, Daron? You excel and you edify because of your excellence. That's in the book. You excel and therefore you edify. And we knew that when we first met you because I studied about you before I ever met you. I saw you at church and I said, Brad, I think I know who that is. And Brad said, I know you know, Dad. I'll tell you who that is. And he called your name. He knew who you was because he knows everybody that's associated with sports at the University of Texas. So let's just start there, how you got there, and maybe we can go backwards and go back to the future and go forward. But let's start at the University of Texas, how this job, how this professorship that you're doing right now, how it came to be. You came here, and let's talk about that.
You know, I made up my mind that day that I was going to take a sabbatical from coaching. So my idea was I'm going to take a year off, spend it with my family, regroup, and then think about the next play. Mm-hmm. Well, I get a call from the Houston Texans, and the general manager at the time calls me and he says, I'd love for you to be a scout, you know. And I said, it's close enough to coaching, but also too far away. I don't think I want to do it, but talked myself into it. I fly into Houston. I start on a Monday. Friday morning, I walked into his office and he said, you're about to quit. And I said, yeah. I said, look, I appreciate the opportunity, but I made a promise to myself and my family that I was going to take a year off. And I feel myself getting right back into the cycle of a National Football League.
How long had you done that?
I'd done that for a week. I mean, I literally flew in from Cleveland. My wife will tell you, you know, if we've ever been close to divorce, it was at this moment, because as I'm quitting my job, she is on a Southwest flight from Cleveland to Houston, about to look for houses.
Uh-huh.
But something in my spirit just said this was not the place for me. And I said, listen, I'm resigning, and I appreciate the opportunity. And we decided to move to Austin. I called up an associate dean of liberal arts who was my professor while I was at UT. And I said, look, one of the things I like to do is create syllabi. I had like 10 different syllabi that over the course of 7 years, course on speech writing. Yeah. I said, I don't know if you have room for it. He goes, I got room for it. Come on in. So I taught this class. This was around the time of the Ray Rice episode.
Yes,
so
sir.
I don't know if a lot of people will follow.
Running back,
Ravens, high-profile event, and the commissioner, Roger Goodell, comes into town, and his office called me and said, we didn't know you were in Austin. We thought you were still coaching. I said, well, I'm not. And he said, well, we're going to meet with Coach Charlie Strong. We want to talk about what are some ways that we can use sports to influence young men beyond the confines of the white lines on the field. So I sat in this meeting with Coach Strong and Goodell, Commissioner Goodell, and we're talking about, you know, we need to wrap some leadership courses, and not just how to lead on the field, but what does it look like to be empathetic? What does vulnerability look like? And so I went to the president at the time, who was Bill Powers, and I said, I've got an idea. I think we should create a Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation. It should be separate from athletics because, you know, sometimes, I love sport. I'm a former coach. I also know that sometimes if you're too close to sports, then initiatives can ride the waves of wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, it should be in the president's office. And he said, I'm going to fund it. You're going to run it. I said, well, no. I said, I'll be on the search committee to help you find somebody. And Bill Powers, being who he is. Well, I told Bill Powers this. I said, look, because he asked me to debrief him on the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, you're going to run it. So that was 2014. So it's been 8 years. And I've had 3,042 students. You know, we created this thing where I have a 3-hour course. I'm actually on sabbatical this semester. We can talk about that too, because I kind of want to step away from teaching. 3-hour course, leadership, vulnerability, empathy, decision-making, failure management, rejection, financial literacy. And at first we only offered it to student athletes, and then we had so much interest from non-athletes that these courses were, you know, some of the most oversubscribed classes at UT. So it was
you know, yours is one of the only courses they advertise on the Longhorn Network.
Yeah,
and you know what?
Which I wish they would stop, because I've had to.
You know what, Daron? But when I see it, you know, when I'm channel surfing and I go over there, because the Longhorns, when they play a football game on the Longhorn channel, they never lose. You know that. So you're going to see a win. So even though they don't win all their games, but when they advertise you, it's like, I got to see this again. I have watched you.
You got to be tired of that thing.
47 times I've watched you teaching, and I thought I went to a law class out there one time. A young man used to come to church, and he was a law professor. And I said, "Can I come and sit in on your class?" He said, "Sure, Pastor, come on." So I went out one time and heard him, and I went up to him after it was over. I said, "If you'd given a pop quiz, I'd have made 100 today," because I listened that intently. But you know, I would love to hear you in your sessions. I just love to be an eavesdropper and just listen to you sometime. I'm glad you're taking some time off, because everybody needs that.
Yes.
That's got to be a very tough thing to handle, because athletes are unique breeds.
Yes.
They're unique.
They're unique. You know, I'd have 300 students, and, you know, 75 of them would be athletes. The rest would be non-athletes. And I'd had 3 TAs, and I taught 2 classes a semester, and I enjoyed it. I also found that I'm always, you know, I tell people, you need to get still and then really think about what lights you up.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to complain about, I hate this part of my job, I hate this part of what I do, but there's probably some sliver of light in anything that you do. And when I would ask myself that question, 2 things kept percolating to the surface: writing and speaking. And so I said, you know what? I want to have more quiet time to write, and I want to have more time to speak. And the Lord has I've been speaking for 8 years. This year I've done 38 keynotes.
Wonderful.
And it's been a blessing. And it's given me, I take my kids to school. I can go have lunch with them in the middle of the day. It's given me the flexibility that it's been amazing.
And you doing parenting intentionally. I love that. I love that. I saw something about your kids, that you made them T-shirts. You made them T-shirts, and they're the donut what now? What?
Yes.
The donut council.
I have to give my credit to my mom. My mom, you know, she was an elementary school principal for 30-something years, and so in her retirement
That's
job,
why you're so brilliant. You had a mom that was a school teacher and a dad that was a pastor. You had the spiritual and the...
I tell you what, my mom did. I mean, I remember she would bring me home kindergarten. She would teach me the first grade curriculum. Bring me home the first grade. At night, we'd learn second grade. But her retirement job, she has an embroidery business. So I said, Mom, you know, we're doing this donut council thing, and 3 days later, we had shirts shipped. It's been.
Here's some pictures of it. Here's some pictures of it. We're going to show these kids. So why don't we, Daron? Let's go to you coming out of Mount Pleasant, 1997, a PK. And I love PKs, by the way. Yeah. I love PKs. The more PKs I could have in this church, the more I'd be blessed. But I love it. I love the fact that you are that. And you came here to Austin to get your degree. What was your degree in? Was it pre-law?
There's a major called Plan 2.
Okay.
Which is a liberal arts honors program. You take about 180 kids per year.
Okay.
And it is a broad-based liberal arts curriculum. So world literature, physics, genetics, biology, philosophy.
A plethora of things that just makes you complete.
Oh, yeah. And it was one of the things where there were guaranteed small classes. So my largest class was 30 people.
Oh, man, like high school all over
It was
again.
incredible. And I tell you, UT wasn't my first choice. My first choice was Stanford. I took a visit to Stanford.
Would have never got to meet, though.
You know what? Had they given me some money, we may have never met. We got the letter back, got in, but didn't get any money. And my parents said, look, we're more than happy to send you. And I was fortunate and blessed to get a full ride to go to UT. And so I made the decision. And it was some of the best 4 years of my life.
Okay. Now you're the student government president.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that 1 year or 3 years? How
One
many?
year, one year term.
Senior year. Okay. So then you go to Harvard, the Kennedy School of Law.
So I'll tell you this, Pastor Rex. Okay. I apply to Harvard Law School.
All right.
I get rejected. And it was my first real bout with rejection.
Somebody saying no. Yeah.
Somebody saying no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell you that I read that letter 100 times and I thought, wow, I have good grades, good LSAT score. And something in my mind said, this is not your time. So I get waitlisted. I go to D.C. I work for Joe Lieberman. Don't want to be in D.C. This is 2001.
Yeah.
September 11th rolls around. I'm in the Capitol building on September 11th. And I get a first row seat, like a front row seat into government and politics during, what's got to be one of the most momentous moments in our nation's history. I'm reapplying to Harvard Law School. I get waitlisted 4 years in a row. So I go to the Kennedy School. I get my master's. I keep reapplying. Attempt number 5, I finally get in. So 2004, I walk into Harvard Law School.
Wow.
And they haven't told me. I thought I'm pretty sure I set the record for the most consecutive years getting waitlisted. But I walk in.
That's not a record
it's not one you want. But it's so fascinating because, there are some friends I made there that will be carrying my casket one day. Mm-hmm. I mean, I made some friends for life there. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful that the Lord, He crafted His own time. I was on Daron time.
The steps of a good man are ordered.
Yeah.
He orders our steps. He does. And He had you at the right time, the right place. Yeah. It was 52 years ago today, Daron, I preached my first sermon today, August 23rd. It was on a Sunday. And I went to a little old church. I was raised in it, had about 30 people in it. And it's kind of cool. And so I kind of made a deal with the Lord, okay? I said, now, Lord, if nobody gets saved tonight, if nobody comes forward, if nobody wants to be water baptized, if nobody wants any of that, I said, I think I'm going to just let you have it because I don't want to just be up and just be blowing air at the people. I want to have some progress. So I got up to speak, and there was 25 people there. And there was nobody that needed Jesus. Everybody had the Lord longer than I'd been alive. And so, I just didn't see any product happening. So when I got through speaking, instead of giving an altar appeal, I just went and knelt down and I said, Lord, you can have it. You can have it. I just said, I'm going to let you have it. And about that time, the pastor was dismissing, and the back door of the church opened, and a woman and her daughter came into the church and said, can we find Jesus? Can we pray here tonight? Didn't hear the message, didn't hear none of the service, just walked in off the street, was fixing to go out in the country and take their lives. They had already agreed, mother and daughter, to die together. And the pastor brought them to the front. They gave their heart to the Lord. They were baptized. They started living for God. They were in that church for the longest of time. I think they finally moved away, but they're just great people. And the Lord kind of tapped me on the shoulder, Daron, and He said, you know what, son? He said, I didn't call you to save people. I called you to preach my gospel. Why don't you just do what I called you to do and let me do the saving, and we'll have a good team the rest of our lives. And so I bought in. I understand those kind of things, those waits, those moments, those anxious times. And I look back 52 years ago, I couldn't spell preach. I couldn't find a message with a search warrant. I couldn't find anything. My preaching was about that deep, and that's giving me a lot of credit. But the bottom line is my heart was there. Your heart was there. God sees our hearts, and your steps have been directed. My steps have been directed. That's a beautiful thing. I interviewed Dale Wainwright, a Supreme Court justice for 10 years here. Now he's back into law practice. His mother was a school teacher. His dad was a pastor. And he's an older version of Darren Roberts. And it's just a beautiful thing to see how God just manufactures and fixes and puts us in the right place at the right time. There was a reason why you didn't get to go to Harvard right then. Oh, yeah. There was a reason, but you got to go. Oh, yeah. Now let's talk about, you wrote a book called An Audible, and it's your journey from being a Harvard law student to a professional coach. I want you to kind of tell us, you spoke here, Daron spoke to our men's group a few years back and was absolutely phenomenal, to the largest night of men we'd ever had here, and Daron was our keynote speaker, and he blew us away. Now, you don't have to preach that sermon, but I want you to kind of tell us how that Herm Edwards came into your life and how all this happened and how you got started in professional football. Would you do that?
So I was, summer of 06, I'm clerking at law firms, which is what law students do before you leave, graduate and go practice. And a buddy of mine from high school asked me to go work a football camp with him. I went to the South Carolina football camp. Steve Spurrier was the head coach. Steve
Spurrier, yeah. Oh, the old quarterback coach.
3 days. Oh, yeah. Old ball coach.
Ball coach, they called him ball coach.
He, 3 days, I just realized I loved it. And coaching sixth graders, I went back to Boston. I get to Logan Airport. I picked up the phone, called my parents. I said, I'm a coach football. And they were supportive. They were like, well, what?
You didn't know where at the time.
Didn't know where.
I just said,
this is what I'm going to do. I said, look, I'm going to graduate, but I'm going to also be writing letters to teams, and I want to get on as an intern somewhere, and that's going to be my start. So, I wrote a letter to every team in the NFL. 31 of 32 said no.
I remember you telling that. Every team got a letter.
And look, my last name wasn't Belichick. I mean, if you look at the NFL and rosters, it is a world of nepotism. So
it is.
Belichick's son's a defensive coordinator, so you've got to have some kind of, either you played or you're related to somebody who played. And I had
it's the same way in pastoring.
Absolutely, same thing.
Yeah.
Herm Edwards gave me a shot, training camp intern, no pay, no benefits, 18-hour days. I graduated. Elena Kagan, now Supreme Court Justice, was my dean. I remember having a conversation with her, and I said, Dean Kagan, I got this opportunity to be a training camp intern with the Kansas City Chiefs. She said, that's interesting. And I said, I also had offers to work at law firms. I said, I don't know if I should. I said yes, but I'm kind of having some second thoughts. And she said, well, Daron, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you coach for 2 days or 2 decades, people will still be having legal problems. You can practice law till the day you die.
Anytime.
I would take the opportunity that's more rare. And I never forgot that. And so I graduated.
Great words.
Incredible. And I drove my 2002 Tahoe from Cambridge, Massachusetts, Kansas City, Missouri. And 2007 training camp was my first experience in the league. And
who was the quarterback of that team?
He wasn't good. I can tell you that. We went 4-12. Brody Croyle from the University of Alabama.
Alabama.
They had just gone to the playoffs the previous season, but we weren't good. We were overhauling a roster. Mm-hmm. I learned, because everyone on the staff, they'd either coached or played. Mm-hmm. And I just sat in rooms, and I took my notebook with me, and I just took it in.
Yeah, took it in. Yeah.
Herm Edwards got a job for me working with a local high school. So I'd work during the day, and then I would go over and I would coach at this high school Monday through Thursday. He said, you need some experience on the grass. You need to be coaching. So you take what you see here and you go coach. And that was my education. I tell people, I said, look,
You're
I
a fast
got a
learner. You're a quick
PhD.
learner. Yeah.
In 1 year, I learned more football. And I'd played, Friday Night Lights, Mount Pleasant High School. So I'd been around it. But there's a level of strategy and attention to detail that's really hard to describe in a league where the average margin of victory is 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, even between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Rams, you see a big difference. But when you start looking at the roster, I mean, these games are won by a field goal or a touchdown.
It's minute, just small differences.
And as you know, there isn't any long-term planning. Sunday at noon, we're going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Next Sunday at noon, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's none of this like, well, we've got a 5-year plan and we're going to.
No. It's right now.
It's right now. It's right now. So
This
is my 15th year. This marks 15 years since my first training camp.
So you coached there.
Yeah.
You slept. Didn't you sleep in the field house or something?
Slept in Arrowhead. I realized that Herm is an early riser. He's a head coach now, Arizona State.
Yeah.
But he's going to get up. He's going to be walking through the front door at 5:15
You still have contact with him?
I do. Good man.
Oh,
Good man.
I'd love to meet him.
Good man.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I need to be the first face he sees when he comes in. So I slept at Arrowhead, found an old abandoned room, got a twin blow-up mattress from Academy. Best time of my life. Wasn't married.
Yeah.
Didn't have any kids. Didn't have a mortgage. My only job was to learn football.
Yeah.
So 24/7. I mean, I was literally dreaming about what I saw.
So you were Batman's Robin. You was following him.
I was following him. I said, look, whatever that
Yeah.
guy does. And he was so kind to me in that he would take the time to explain.
It's one of the most beautiful
what
stories.
was going
That's
on.
cool. That's so cool. Yeah. And then you went from there to Detroit?
From there, so the first year I'm an intern. We go 4-12. He fires 4 coaches. He hires me on as a defensive quality control coach, which is like the next run.
So you got to pay the next year.
I got paid the next year. We went through that season. We went 2-14. He gets fired. My defensive coordinator, who's really the mentor who I owe, and he's passed away, God rest his soul, but he really took my career to the next level. He became the defensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions, and he called me up and he said,
Took you with him.
I need you to be on a plane to Detroit tomorrow.
Okay.
And I said, I was in Green Bay. I said, I just accepted a job with the Packers. He said, you need to back out of it. And the only regret I have from 7 years of coaching is that I went back to Coach Mike McCarthy's office and I said, Coach, listen, my mentor just got the defensive coordinator's position. I know I gave you my word yesterday, but I'm going to go to Detroit. And
Mike McCarthy, that's a name that I recognize.
Yes, yeah, you've seen him. And you know what? They go on to win the Super Bowl the next year. So, But it was the right decision. I went and coached cornerbacks, and I was assistant DB's coach at Detroit. Did that for 2 years. I had always had in the back of my mind, the more I coached, I thought, you know what? My dream job really is to be the head coach of Stanford. I want to go to an academic
Stanford still in
institution. It was in my head.
your head. Yeah, still in your head.
So I went to West Virginia for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did that.
Who was that under?
Dana Holgerson. His first 2 years. He's now at the University
He
of
had
Houston.
some beautiful hair.
Oh man, and we had some great team. I mean, first year
I like
we had
Dana. I like Dana.
great players. Tavon Austin,
Yeah,
Stedman
yeah.
Bailey. We beat Clemson 70-33 in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah,
Go to the Big 12 the next year.
yeah.
Learned what the Big 12 is like. And then I went to the Cleveland Browns in 13, and that was my last season.
13.
13.
And what were the Browns doing then?
Oh man, this is.
bring me up to
I'll give
speed.
you the backdrop. So the Browns, they get a new owner, Jimmy Haslam. Completely revamped, new GM, new head coach.
Uh-huh.
We all come in. Rob Chazinski was the head coach. He was the
Yeah, I remember
offensive
that.
coordinator.
I remember that. Yeah.
We're on a 3-year, 4-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
We go 4-12. Owner walks in, fires us. It's one of 2 times in the history of the NFL that a new staff has been fired after 1 season. I mean, this doesn't happen.
Wow.
And so that was the end. And I saw the carousel. I could have gone to Tennessee to coach with the Titans. ended up going to Houston to be a scout. But that's why I was saying at the beginning of the conversation,
you wound up in Austin.
Wound up in Austin.
Yeah. I was talking to our children's minister today, Amy, and first of all, she loves your wife, and she said those are some of the sweetest kids that she's ever had in class. So I give you kudos, man. Have 5 children like that, 12 and 10 and 8 and 6 and 5, and to have sanity. Just to have sanity. And it's a wonderful thing. My last daughter had 4 children, and the oldest one was 5 years old when she had the last one. So she just had, she had stair steps.
Same.
She had 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so there's times she has called us and said, Dad, I don't know if I'm going to make today or not. And we coach her back. But to take those kids out on Friday, where do y'all go get donuts?
So we do it, so every Saturday morning we go, they're done with school. We've been to 49 different places. We go to any donut shop we can find, and we just go sit, eat donuts. People love it. We post it on social media. And they're like, where are you going? Yeah. And it's just a time for me. What I found is that if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't happen.
That's right.
I always tell people, I say, look, there are 2 things. I can tell you more about who you are from two places, your credit card bill and your calendar.
That's right.
And those really, you can say a lot of what you do and what you're going to do, but where you spend your money and how you spend your time tells me a lot about what your priorities are.
Kids need time.
Yes.
They need time.
So when you sit down and talk, and, those conversations have matured. And my wife and I, we both knew we wanted 5 kids. I have 20 uncles and aunts, so I grew up around 53 first cousins, and she's from a smaller family, so we kind of met in the middle in terms of that number. They give us life, though. It's one of those things where there is a level of appreciation for life when all 7 people in your home wake up in the morning.
Children purify everything. It purifies everything. But the bottom line is that when you have children and you're close to your kids and you love your kids, it's like it's a beautiful day every day. You just forget the things around you and focus on what is good, and all of a sudden everything becomes almost magically wonderful. Yeah. And that's not a word I want to use, but it's just a great word, because kids are the arrows in your quiver. And the Bible says, happy is a man that has a whole quiver full of them, Pastor Brad spoke here recently, and he talked about there's a lot of arrows, but there's only one target. And I love that. That stuck with me. And I know where you're shooting your kids. You're shooting them toward the Lord. You're shooting them toward the best life, the greatest life. Do your kids play ball?
I've got my oldest one's into basketball.
Okay.
We here are the activities in my home. We've got a horseback rider. We've got a gymnast, 2 gymnasts. We've got soccer going. We've got basketball. We've got a color-coded calendar, and they're going back and forth place to place. And then one thing I decided after leaving the NFL was like, look, I like football, but I wasn't going to. I made a decision I wasn't going to coach my kids in any sport. Yeah. And
that's a great decision.
That was for me to say, I know what coaching entails for me to do it, and I wanted to keep that father-kid relationship child. So they're in everything, and we may have some that turn to football players, but that's what they're into now.
That's so cool, man. Okay, Daron, we're gonna try to start wrapping this up. Yeah. You may be one of the world's most interesting people. You really might. I really mean that. I'm not just padding your stats here, but you have had so much in your life. I told you before we started today that Alexander the Great, when he was 33, wept because there was no more worlds to conquer. And you're 43 years old. And what a joy to have a father, a Christian father, that still honors his mom, his parents, his mom and dad, and loves his wife, and is complete with what God has done for him and your family. And there's not a lot of people that have that. People are still reaching for that extra. But I think I think it's the devoutness of your walk with God. I think it's the devoutness of your walk with God. So what I'd like to do to wrap this up, I'd like for you to just kind of talk to the podcast people and people that are listening today, and just tell them how deeply you appreciate your experience with God, your experience with your family, your experience with your church, and understand that these are the things that really matter. In a world that's lost to purpose, we still have purpose. In a world that's lost to family values, we still have family values. I think that's a winner. That's a winner. And I know that God has His hand on you, and He's had His hand on you. I mean, y'all have been as steady as anybody we've ever had in this church. I appreciate your compliment to me at the first of this interview, but I also want to compliment you and your wife. You always have the same smile. I mean, it's just like rewind, smile, rewind, smile. I mean, and it's not a painted smile. It's not a plastic smile. It's a real, genuine joy. And there's nothing like genuine joy in the Lord. So I just want you to kind of give us some of your heart feelings, some of your things that you want to finish with, and just talk about a little bit about your family values. I've told people a lot in my life that I have 5 values, that God is my passion. Family is what matters. The longest finger is people are my purpose. And money will never be the reason I preach the gospel. And friends will always be my friends. Give me a pinky, buddy. Friends will always be my friends. So why don't you kind of tell me some values that you've instilled into your life going forward? And if your mom and dad are listening, tell them I'd sure like to meet them one day.
Yes,
and see them.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Our family verse comes out of Timothy, 2 Timothy. It's, for God has not given us a spirit of fear,
right, but
of power, love, and a sound mind.
Right.
And I've been thinking about this quite a bit. You know, one of the things that my wife's white, I'm black, our children are black, and so we understood growing up in America that I knew that I had a very early education in race. Okay. I'm from rural East Texas, population, Mount Pleasant, 12,291 people.
It's not far from Mount Vernon, is it?
Yes, right next door to Mount Vernon on Interstate 30.
Yeah.
Small town, and I heard some things at a very early age where I had to go back to my dad and say, now, why are they calling me this?
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this a little bit before we started talking. One thing I want a lot of the people who are listening to really think through is Christianity is pure, but some parts of this thing that we love, Christ, is getting weaponized to divide.
I agree wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly.
And it's a scary thing. When I drive, we have a reunion every summer. East Texas, I drive from Mount Pleasant to Carthage, Texas. And we'll see Confederate flags, and these Confederate flags will be in the same spot as a cross. And my kids are perceptive, and they've learned they got to ask questions. They're like, well,
sure.
How do you?
Sure.
What does that? What does that mean?
Right.
So I think it's really, in 2022, it's always been the case. We've got to be really honest with what does our faith teach us.
Right. Right.
And are we being true to the word?
To faith.
To
the
faith.
Word.
To
the
faith.
Word. The word.
To the word. And
right.
and who is our neighbor? You know,
right. That's
the question posed to Jesus. Well,
right.
who is my neighbor?
Right.
That's a question that's still very prevalent today.
Right.
And unless we answer that with honesty and truth, we're going to continue to see this country ripped apart. And that's been the thing, I'll tell you, Pastor Rex, that's been on my mind, because I see my kids growing up. I'm fearful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, but I'm fearful at the same time.
Right.
So I really think I want this to be a call to Christians to be honest. If you say you love everybody.
It's time for Christians to be Christian.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what this church is. It's everybody matters. Everybody, we care for everybody. Everybody's welcome. We want everybody to be a part of it because we lift Christ here. He said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. And what's happened is that the church has become politicized and not kept Christ as the center focus. And unless we do that, and I thank God that Christian Life Church does practice what I'm preaching to you right now, and you know that. But the bottom line is that we have to focus and keep our focus on Christ, for in Him we move and breathe and have our being. It's all about Jesus. Yeah. Just like I told you about the man that walked up to me, and he said, what are you doing about this social injustice? I said, I'm preaching Jesus. I'm lifting Him up. And that's all we've ever done here. That's all we've ever done. I refuse to bring that swagger into the message of Jesus Christ. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit.
Well, but I do think there is a place. I had a lot of conversation. This is around George Floyd.
Okay.
2020. A lot of conversation with pastors, and they were saying, when you grow up in a black church, the black church is a therapy. It is all things.
Yeah.
It's a safe haven.
Yeah. Martin Luther King's one of my favorite speakers.
Right. And so you're talking about, the things that what's been so prevalent is that race has driven such a division that in the process of healing your congregation, it just comes up. And I had a lot of pastors come to me and say, I don't know, do I need to bring this up? I said, well, look, the one thing about the gospel that it's never been convenient, know?
No.
You think about the Jeremiah and Isaiah. I mean, a lot of people had to get upset.
Jeremiah had 0 people in his church. He didn't have anybody in his church.
Right. and sometimes, it's there to convict. And I want Christians, because I think I've seen a lot of Christians on paper, but when really pressed to what do you believe and how are you treating people who don't look like you, it doesn't match up. And I hope we can, especially for people who listen, like we need to get back.
Yeah.
This is where we need to go.
Yeah. I concur 100%, 110%. And we're going to strive for that in this church continually. That'll never be anything less than what we preach here. Yeah. And so I love you with the love of the Lord.
Pastor.
My little old boy that I lost to that tragedy used to tell me, Daddy, I love you with the love of the Lord. And I said, well, son, you do that your whole life, you're going to go to heaven.
That's some good love.
That's some good love. I love you, Daron.
I love you, Pastor
I thank
Rex.
you for your sweet family and those 5 precious children. And I love to hug them. Thank you for letting me hug your family and just be to them what a pastor needs to be to them. I appreciate the fact that you love where you are, and we love y'all. We love you. And if there's anything I can ever help you with, I'll be here for you.
Listen, I want to thank you for what you're doing and what you're continuing to do and the seeds that you're sowing.
Thank you, sir.
And I grew up with a pastor, so I saw it when it comes home.
Yeah, and he did a good job on you. Your dad did a good job on you because you have eagle eyes, you have a good heart, you have a quick mind, and you are forgiving. You are a forgiving person.
But I was going to say, I'm going to keep praying for you because I see what happens when the preacher comes home. Yeah, people see you, among the congregation.
Yeah.
But they're not there on Tuesday and Wednesday night and the late night phone calls.
Yeah.
That's a part that I think people have to.
I'll shake your hand again on that one.
It's real. It's real.
It is. It's real.
It is real. And I think that we have to also lift you up.
And the enemy uses those kind of moments to try to damage what God has blessed in the house. He tries to damage us and make us feel that we're not complete for what God has done in our life. And it is a battle. It's a battle. It's up and down. It's sideways. It's upside down. It's inside out. And it's always there. It's always there. And most preachers are more 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. We're more we self-effacing. We take things to heart. And it's very difficult. That's very difficult. But Daron, I thank you for your prayers. I really do. And Don't ever come in this church without coming by and give me a big old two-hander. I love you. Let me bless the congregation.
Yes,
Dear
sir.
Father, I thank you for this time. Thank you for Daron. Thank you for his honesty, his integrity, his character, his uprightness. Thank you that he was born right, that he was born in a great home. God, you have shown him favor in his life, and I honor that today. I bless his family. I bless his wife, his children. I bless his future and everything that he does. Walk with him, God. He's one of these kind of men, Lord, that you said in the Bible, if I'm behind you, you said, if he goes right, it's going to be all right. If he goes left, it's going to be okay. Because, Lord, you know that you are directing and guiding his steps. So let him walk in that continued favor that you've given to him, and bless our church with their family, and bless this house forever in Jesus' name. And all the people in Podcastville, we're happy to have had you today. Thank you for being a part. We went a little long, but we had fun. And we'll see you next time. God bless. Have a great day.